I'm trying to be better about bringing my own food on Sunday. Week 1 was really bad because I felt I'm one of those people, and Diana, I'm sure you understand this coming from an Italian family. Like, I've never shown up empty-handed to any sort of gathering of human beings ever in my entire life. I can't do it. And week 1, I was like, okay, Chicago, everyone came here because I live here. I feel like a deep need and obligation to be the host in this situation. So I brought donuts for week 1. And then we ordered sandwiches at lunch. And by the time we recorded the show on Sunday night, I was like, I can't even think, I'm so full. And so I'm trying to be a little better about eating healthy as we have to do a podcast at 10:30 p.m. every single week.
Hello and welcome to Scoop City, presented by eBay on a Wednesday. I am James Palmer. Don't forget to like and subscribe. As always, we say that. And on a Wednesday, as always, it is Dianna Russini, the Athletic Senior NFL Insider, joining me once again. We're going to have Robert Mays later on the show. It's going to be a party. Dianna, how are things today?
Good. I feel like we hit the backup quarterback circus a little too early for my liking. I it's always coming. Like, we're always going to have the week where it's like, well, all the backups are in, but you don't want to hear that in September. And I definitely, I don't want to continue talking about turf toe. And I was Googling before, why isn't it not grass toe? Right? Why is it just turf toe? So all that stuff. It's been a fun few days of just looking into it and watching some surgeries as well. I get a little weird sometimes when I get into certain medical things in football. Watching some surgery. Oh, I thought you were like Seinfeld when Kramer drops the junior mint in there, like you were watching a surgery, but no, you're just watching with the timetable on some of these surgeries. I get it. Listen, we're going to talk about Tom Brady because everybody is. Watching the surgery, James.
You're watching the surgeries?
I was looking at the videos. I had to make a call right there in my head. I'm like, should I just let James think I'm not really doing that? Because I guess he's right.
You're watching, and then you're sending out a tweet going like, from my expert eye, the surgery went well. I saw.
No, I just wanted to see what it looked like and what Joe Burrow was actually getting done to the ligament. So again, probably need to not do that while I'm at traffic lights.
No, but I don't know about a traffic light, but above and beyond, I applaud that, but not the time period in which you're using the phone. Listen, we're going to get to a lot, Dianna, in the show. We're going to talk about Tom Brady. Is there really a conflict of interest? Is there really? Dianna and I asked around. We're going to get to the bottom of that. We're going to talk about the panic meter. And we're going to have Robert Mays on to talk about that with us, whether we should be panicking in Miami or Chicago or Kansas City. We'll find out. And then lastly, we're going to get to these quarterback injuries that Diana's talking about. It is a big deal, and it is only week 3. It is a very big deal, Dianna. So here's what we're hearing. Dianna, this is what we're hearing with some quarterbacks. The biggest one, really, I think, is the former Rookie of the Year, the one that's really up in the air now that Jayden Daniels is in year 2. Again, we're taping this on a Wednesday. He did not practice, but where are we for Sunday?
Yeah, so we're at a point right now where we at least know it's a sprained knee. He received that MRI right after that game against the Green Bay Packers. And, credit to Grant Paulson in Washington for putting out that report all of last week. And the team confirmed it. And so he's dealing with it. And I do think that the team is going to try to be conservative here. They're obviously going to try to be competitive and have some gamemanship here. And Dan Quinn said that he's not going to practice. They didn't even have him speak to the media, which usually is a good sign. They said if he were to play, though, if they decide that maybe he can go, he'd be available to the media on Friday. So they're really doing a good job of keeping us guessing. Yeah. But I think that you can look at the situation, understand the injury, and know that it'd probably push a little too much if he were to go. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be surprised if he were to miss this game. But of course, we got to see how this knee feels come Friday. Yeah,
they're going to go through the entire week, to my understanding, right? They're going to take it all the way up. Maybe Friday might be a call. We'll see. I think they want to kind of gauge where he's at. There's benchmarks that Dan Quinn has. I think you mentioned with something important there is the type of player he is, where he is in his career, where they are in the season, and again, how he plays the game. I think that's extremely important. The legs are a huge part of the way Jayden Daniels plays this game. He led the Commanders in rushing last year, Dianna. He had more scrambles, 75, than any other quarterback in football. Nobody else was above 50 3 last season, and he already, I believe, has 10 scrambles this season through 2 games. So using his legs, playing outside the pocket, a big part of how he plays. And I think all of this is getting put together because also they've had some issues protecting so far a little bit. Took a lot of sacks last year, and I believe the Raiders have 6 sacks already this season. So I think all of this is probably going around in that bald Dan Quinn head of his as he tries to evaluate when they bring
with the hat or no hat.
I like that he rocks the backwards hat, that like he just doesn't care. He's like, I don't care what anybody thinks how I look. This is what I do. I rock this dad backwards hat. It looks like he should be mowing a lawn in like the suburbs with that backwards hat and being like,
I
mowing and be like, how's it going, Dave? And just mowing a lawn as he's, as he's hanging out on a Saturday, but he's not. He's one of the best coaches in football. Speaking of one of the best coaches in football, Kyle Shanahan has a quarterback that is banged up as well, Dianna, in Brock Purdy. You have been reporting, brilliantly, I might add, that this might be a little bit maybe on the shorter end in terms of recovery from his very own turf toe, or dead foot, as I'd like to call it, to maybe give it a little more gusto, or death foot.
Slash toe.
Yeah, I put death foot on the internet, and nobody really seemed to pick that up.
Yeah, they're like, what a weirdo.
Yeah,
I think maybe you and I are the only ones who wanted to change the name. So
I liked death foot. The only comment I got was from Silver and Silver's son, so that's the only people that really seem to care. Where are we at in Brock Purdy? Because you seem to have been on top of this, that this might be a little bit, maybe a shorter absence than something.
James, I think there was a little bit concern initially that this would be a longer recovery period because it's truly about pain management where, with Joe Burrow, he's getting surgery. He's getting those tendons.
And these are 2 different turf toe type of essentially grades.
Different grades.
Yes.
So this is still a tear, but it doesn't need surgery and it's not as significant as Joe Burrow's. So it's all going to be about how Brock feels this week. So I would expect to see him at least out on the field trying to do something to see how that feels. Mac Jones did a really good job against the New Orleans Saints, which we talked about before the game. We knew that
Kyle certain show think that was going to happen.
Oh, yeah, so he called it, which it doesn't really take a rocket scientist because that's how good Kyle Shanahan is.
Relax. And give us some credit.
I know I should. I'm a little too hard on me. Too hard on you. So I think that the good news is it appears that the backup quarterback can handle the operation for now. So they're not going to feel rushed to put Brock in there. But I think the even better news is this isn't so significant that we're not going to at least see Brock around over the next week or so. I think all signs are pointing to him returning on the earlier end of this compared to maybe the later when we initially thought he injured this foot, or at least when he did injure this foot, we thought maybe this would take longer. So this is really great news for the Niners.
That is good news. That is good news.
2-0 49ers too.
2-0 49ers. You're right. And let's
feel it, right?
It doesn't feel it. It just seems like people are kind of like weary a little bit, right? They're like, they still have some talent. They still have a good core. Brock, is he going to consistently like find issues with injury? Like, I don't want to believe. And then watch back into this year, they'll be doing just fine. I guarantee it. Carson Wentz is going to be manning the quarterback spot for Kevin O'Connell. We just talked about Jayden Daniels. Filling in for him would be Marcus Mariota. What year is this? Carson Wentz, Marcus Mariota on the field. But that all stems from where things stand with J.J. McCarthy. And he was not placed on IR. I think that's a big part of this, right?
Yes, that is the best part of the story, is that they have not made that decision yet, which means that they've got hope that the high ankle can recover. But James, you know this because we've covered so many of the high ankle situations. Again, another pain management situation where it really depends on the guy. It depends on the player. Ryan Tannehill was trying to get out there after like 2 days of injuring his. I remember that back in Tennessee. So and look, I don't know the type of pain tolerance JJ has. I'm gonna guess based on that one quarter we saw and the fire that kid has, he is gonna probably try to push closer to getting back than the opposite. But you've got Carson Wentz in there now. Kevin O'Connell reached out to Andy Reid. He reached out to Sean McVay. Did all the homework on who is Carson Wentz before they sign him. Is this a guy that I can actually do this with? Because Kevin O'Connell has had such great success, obviously, with so many backup quarterbacks. Is this even feasible? And Carson really got the sign off from both the 2 Super Bowl winning coaches that, yeah, Kevin, go ahead, take it. You can do it. You can make something work with him. And Wentz got the opportunity this past Thursday to take first team reps. So he had a chance to really go out there and as you know, like Thursday practices in the NFL are big.
Yeah.
And he looks good. Like I think Kevin O'Connell even said publicly that I think there was not one ball dropped. Like the ball never hit the ground. That Carson looked that sharp out there. So I think there's certainly belief there. So I think this is good news for the Minnesota Vikings, who I'm sure, look, J.J. McCarthy had a hell of a week. Short week, a baby. I don't think I did a good enough job talking about that last show of like, oh wait, do you remember what you were like? But obviously different experiences for you as the father. Not saying it's any different though in terms of the adrenaline, the life change.
No, I think it's very different, actually, Diana. I think it's extremely different.
Our female listeners are like, Diana, shut up! I do not remember her screaming. That pain is so awful, but at the same time, like, you remember what it was like, right? Like, it took a while. Sorry, Kev, I'm going to speak for you, but like, it took a while for him to be normal again. He was so high, and obviously in love and excited that imagine having to go game plan. Like, I don't care who you are. That's hard.
Oh yeah. I mean, the focus. I mean, it's your child. You're like, your eye is constantly over there. Like, you could have your iPad wherever you're at, but you're going to be like, I can't believe that's like my kid. I can't believe I had a kid. Like, that is unbelievable. Nix was born during the bye.
Mom, like, you're worried about a million things.
It's wild. Nix was born during the bye week, by the way. Meg was a genius when I was covering the Texans way back when, which was awesome.
That's the type of commitment I look for in the people that are part of the Scoop City.
Very much so. She has commitment. She's commitment to the league.
We love you, girl.
Yes, very much so. And with Wentz, it was funny that you brought all that up because we didn't talk about it. I remember being with the Chiefs towards the end of last season and just kind of being like, oh, how's Carson been? And they were like, great. Like, we think he's kind of like he's a starting caliber player in this league still at the quarterback position. And so it's going to be interesting because what do we love seeing, Diana? Kevin O'Connell with a reclamation project at quarterback, and we just love to watch it happen. And this is on him, honestly. I said this in something.
He loves this.
I think he might.
Look, I think he wants J.J. McCarthy, but I think he loves the challenge. I think he looks at this as another way to show that he is a fantastic play caller and truly a head coach who's got the pulse of his quarterback and knows how to get the most out of whoever that is. He's already earned that respect, but keep it coming. Work your magic, Kevin O'Connell. We'll see it.
I love it. I think it's great. But also, I would be remiss if we didn't say the situation that they're in right now falls squarely on Kevin's shoulders. So it's going to be fun to watch the reigning coach of the year go out there and try to put this together until he can get his starter back. And the other part that I look at is, look at how J.J. McCarthy grows when he's working, when he's in the environment, when he's doing, right? He gets better in week one. By the fourth quarter, he's a different quarterback. Again, another injury eliminates that process of learning on the job that we have seen some points where that helps J.J. McCarthy. Some people help themselves by watching and taking a step back. Happened for Bryce Young a year ago, but I feel like J.J. is kind of one of those players from doing it helps, and he can't do it here. All right, to Tom Brady. And the conflict of interest, and our man Peter Schrags, who I feel like nobody's really like backing or whatever. He was just told by Chip Kelly. I
know. They're like, no, he didn't. It's like, you think Peter just made that up?
Yeah, Peter didn't go like, anonymous sources tell me that Tom Brady's been meeting with. He said Chip Kelly told me in our meeting, which is ironic because this is what we're going to talk about. Chip Kelly told me in our production meeting that he's meeting with Tom Brady 2 to 3 times a week, and they're going over film and they're going over game plans, and then we see Brady just devastatingly overdressed for the coach's booth in a suit and tie with the headset on, and he's there, and then the internet goes bonkers about the conflict of interest, about being in a broadcast booth and a coach's booth as a minority owner. Diana, what's the pulse around the league when you ask, do people genuinely in decision-making roles care?
I feel like I've gotten a pretty good split call on it. Like there's some teams who are like, I do not care. Like literally that was the text back. I do not care. We do not care. It does not bother us. You know, you have some that have the philosophy of if Tom Brady really wants to get intel, he can go find it. Like he doesn't need to be in a production meeting. Of course it makes it easier.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and then I have others who like, it's a completely unfair advantage. And the fact that it's been allowed, this long and everyone's just okay with it and just been like, well, it's Tom Brady, you know? I just think there's a couple layers to the story, right? Because you have, let's just start with the conflict of interest as the minority owner and as the broadcaster. That's the first thing of being given this access. And James, for those that are listening, you've been in these production meetings. Yep. I have been in these production meetings. Tell me what you like about a production meeting that you think teams would maybe be weary of with having Brady in it, that maybe the football fan doesn't know that was get revealed in a meeting.
Yeah, great point. Because I feel like this meeting is getting downplayed by a lot of people this week. Maybe my opinion's different being in it. And maybe because I've spent the majority of my time standing at the coach's podium on a Wednesday or a Thursday trying to get as much information as possible out of a coach that wants to give you none. Brady also comes from an organization that wants to provide none in all of those settings. But when it comes to a production meeting, there is a completely different feel. I brought up New England. Bill Belichick in a production meeting to Bill Belichick on the podium with the media are two vastly different human beings. I can't stress that enough. I've been in one with Bill Belichick, and it's a very different feel. Now, the conversation can go anywhere. I think in one of them, he started arguing with Kurt Warner about a previous Super Bowl of the two of them going against each other. So, like, these meetings can go a lot of different ways. But I take a lot of value out of it. I think you can figure a lot of things out big picture, Dianna, as opposed to game plan strategy. And I think that's where everybody's looking at this. Anything I put out on social media, I had a tweet that got a lot of attention. A lot of the comments I look at are like, well, the Raiders still stink. The Raiders only scored such and such points. I don't think that's the competitive advantage, the distinct game strategy. I think it's the larger picture. Who's liked and disliked in the building? Who's liked and disliked in terms of their usage? All of that, from coaches to players to anything, is a little nugget of information about what the big picture is going on in that organization and how maybe somebody that's involved in that could impact the way the Raiders operate. Because I think we are looking at somebody that's extremely competitive. I think he's the greatest player this league's ever seen. And is he just going to turn that competitive nature off about finding every little nugget that can help his team win?
Correct.
I just find that completely bonkers. And so, again, I'm curious what you've taken out of the meetings, because scheme, no, they don't tell you like, we're going to scheme this, we're going to do that, and direct X's and O's. That's really not mentioned in that meeting. But oftentimes in that meeting, I think the favor of certain players and things like that might be mentioned and could be taken as getting an added advantage in a position that no other owner's in.
And look, it depends on which coach is sitting there, which player.
100%.
You're usually getting the stars, right? Most star players are very well media trained. Once in a while, they'll throw you in a rookie, a high draft pick, and that's usually where the Sharks can attack, right? Because they're not as trained as the older players, and maybe something would get revealed, something a little bit more than you'd expect. And some teams, look, I've sat in there with head coaches where I can't believe what they're telling, what they're sharing with us, because there's an understanding that the broadcast partner, the team that's calling the game, that there is a circle of trust. It is, if there, no one says it, no one talks about it, it's just understood. And I can tell you, as being friends with tons of people that are in these meetings, like friends of mine, good friends of mine, if I see them before the game or even the morning of, I mean,
no, they don't.
They act like they know the answers to everything, and they won't even give you a wink, a hint, not that you'd ever use it as a source, but like, I mean, I'm talking the most casual conversations. They freak out because there's just such an understanding in that space. Tom Brady, when he was a player, what do you think he was like? Right? I bet you he was neurotic about what he was saying and who knew who. And so I see this as ironic, that he is getting this access and maybe using it to his advantage, while when he was a player, I'm sure he didn't even like any of that, as same way as Belichick. So you've got that story. Then I had somebody with the team make this point to me yesterday, and I guess I just didn't think of it, of just the idea that he's a minority owner sitting in a booth, and we're not really criticizing that because we're all consumed with the conflict of interest on the broadcasting side. But what about the minority owner sitting in the booth? Like, I know he's the greatest quarterback of all time, but what is his role? Is he the owner? Is he like John Elway was with the Broncos, where he ran all football operations? Tom Brady needs to own what he is with the Las Vegas Raiders, which is running the Las Vegas Raiders. Yeah. Right? And because when he gets asked about it, he does not say much. Like, he's like, oh, I'm just in the background. Like, I don't know why he talks like that. He does not talk like that. Sorry,
he does not speak like that.
I just think that he is doing his best to reveal very little, Pariush, because it is going to be a conflict when the rest of the league really, like, we knew how involved he was because you and I are reporters. The world found out on Monday Night Football. That was the first time people that, like, I'm friends with that like football, they're like, wait, Tom Brady's doing this? I'm like, yes. Yeah. Yes, he is. And I think the more examples that we uncover and hear about, whether it's Alex Guerrero, the trainer being there, there's a million little tentacles of Tom Brady that are smothered over the Vegas Raiders. And I'm not sure how this is going to sit by the end of the season.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I think it's interesting that the rules were actually relaxed for him this season compared to last season. He was not allowed to attend these production meetings last season. Now, again, this year, he is not allowed to attend them in person. He's not allowed to attend practice, which often happens with the broadcast teams. He's allowed to attend these virtually. So I'm assuming he's sitting on like an iPad in the middle of the table, because it's usually in a big conference room. And then there's Tom's head, and he can ask questions as well. So he's there virtually. But that's the strange part of all of this, right, Dianna? Like, we did talk about, and I love that you brought it up, about these broadcast friends of ours, whether it be Joe Buck or Troy Aikman or Tracy Wolfson or Jim Nantz or whoever it is. I want to give all of them a lot of respect and give them their kudos, because they keep everything that's said in these meetings very close to the vest and have a very good understanding about what should be said on the air and what should be just kept to themselves. Now, I don't want to accuse Tom Brady that he's not doing that. I just think it's putting everyone involved in a very interesting position. And with everything that has been done, I just feel like the perception of conflict of interest might be a greater issue right now than even the actual conflict of interest, which is something that the NFL could have avoided possibly and maybe has not. Okay. Do you have anything else on this at all? Before we move on? Suit
as nice as Tom Brady's? Like, do you have one in there that you think you go toe to toe with him, because that was a very nice suit?
Yeah.
You dress very well. So that's why I asked you that. I would not have asked you that if I thought you dressed like a garbage can.
I think I got one. I used to save one for the Super Bowl. Like all year, it'd be saved and it wouldn't be worn on Sundays.
Really quickly, because you're Philadelphia, what do you call the thing that picks up the stuff you throw out? What do you call that big thing with the wheels in the morning?
Trash truck.
Okay. We call it a garbage truck. Isn't that interesting?
Garbage truck, right?
We call it a garbage truck. Philly people call it a trash truck. Just something I learned recently.
Yeah, well, we do things our way, Dianna. Coming up on Scoop City, presented by eBay, we have Robert Mays joining us to talk about where our panic level is with the Chicago Bears, the Miami Dolphins, and the Kansas City Chiefs. Panic meter, where is it? Find out next. All right, welcome back to Scoop City, presented by eBay. James Palmer, Dianna Russini, and we have a very special guest, Dianna. It is Robert Mays. It is the host of the Athletic Football Show. And Robert, I'm a little jealous of your guys' studio setup. I'm not going to lie. They're in Chicago. I like your new addition. I love that guy. And so, how are things, man? How are things?
They're great. It's fun to be in person. It's fun to do the shows in person. It's fun to watch the games together. Like, there's just a lot of new on the Athletic Football Show this year, and we are very much enjoying it to this point in the season.
What are you guys eating when you're watching? Are you ordering food?
So we've been ordering food. There's a couple. So the studio is in like the West Loop Fulton Market area in Chicago, and there's a dozen really good sandwich places within delivery distance. I'm trying to be better about bringing my own food on Sunday. Week 1 was really bad because I'm one of those people, and Diana, I'm sure you understand this coming from an Italian family. Like, I've never shown up empty-handed to any sort of gathering of human beings ever in my entire life. I can't do it. And week one, I was like, okay, Chicago, everyone came here because I live here. I feel like a deep need and obligation to be the host in this situation. So I brought donuts for week one. And then we ordered sandwiches at lunch. And by the time we recorded the show on Sunday night, I was like, I can't even think, I'm so full. And so I'm trying to be a little better about eating healthy as we have to do a podcast at 10:30 p.m. every single week.
Yeah. And the energy it takes to like also rev back up after you've watched the games. And some of these games, they've been good, but a couple duds here and there, right? So you like lose your steam. But I've been impressed so far. You guys, you ramp it up, and it's always such great analysis, especially like you don't have a lot of time to think about it. Like you watched it, you saw it, you go. So it's definitely a must listen. So we're so psyched to have you here on Scoop City, where we don't do the type of work that you're doing with that immediate reaction. We're doing a lot more of breaking news stuff, as you know, and things that everyone around the league is talking about. So we kind of want to get some insight on some of the topics that we're kind of hot on right now.
Yeah, we're going to have a great conversation. We're going to have a great conversation here between the three of us. And listen, I always bring alcohol. I just want to throw that out there. I don't bring food. I just usually bring the booze. So maybe that can make the show like off the rails or super awesome by the end. Sunday night rolls around if you show with a bottle of bourbon, Robert. I don't know.
Yeah, Dave and Derek 6 drinks in talking about the Falcons pass rush. I think that's what everybody wants.
Yeah, right. Dave's got the beer going. All right, let's get down to brass tacks here. We're going to talk about a panic meter a little bit here with a few teams, and we're going to start with the team right there in your backyard, Robert, in the Chicago Bears. I've talked to some people there. I want to hear the buzz of what's happening in Chicago right now because it feels like people are already in full-on panic mode. But I do want to make this disclaimer before we jump into it. No other team in the history of the NFL has started out playing two teams that won 14 or more games the previous year. That has never happened. I looked it up. The other 3 or 4 teams that have had to do it with a winning percentage that high with their first 2 opponents all played football in the 1920s. So this is rare time for the Bears to start with these 2 opponents. Does that cut them any slack, Robert, at all in what we've seen in 2 weeks?
It depends on who you're asking. If you're asking a random person on the streets of Chicago, I don't think anybody cares. I think everybody is in full-on panic mode right now. I went back and rewatched the game this morning, and I don't know if this is just severe cope for me as a Bears fan or if I'm trying to see it with a little bit of rationality. I am concerned. I'm not freaking out. I guess that's where I land 2 games into the season. The offense, I actually thought, did some really nice things on Sunday, specifically the quarterback. After week 1, I feel like some of the misses were troubling, but even the way that he was playing out some of the plays, reading things out, watching him and just the mechanics of playing the position against the Vikings, I didn't love what I saw. On Sunday against the Lions, I truly think you saw some of the best moments from Caleb Williams' entire career in terms of the throws he was making, how he was reading things out. There were so many splash plays where I'm like, okay, you can really attach yourself to this. The offense has been sloppy, and the defense right now looks sloppy. And so that's how I'm trying to rationalize this is it's 2 games of a new regime. And the example I keep throwing out, James, I'm sure you remember this deeply. Week 3, I believe, of the 2023 season, the Broncos give up 73 points to the Miami Dolphins.
This is in my notes right here about this Bears team. I love that you brought it up. Go ahead.
Vance Joseph is somebody who was a head coach in the league, is a well-respected defensive coordinator. That defense looked like the worst unit in the NFL for the first month of the year in that season. And you can extend it to week 4 when they actually played against the Chicago Bears, and Justin Fields had one of the best games of his career. We know Dennis Allen can do this. And so I'm really hoping with a little bit more time, with a couple more weeks to kind of hone these things in, the defensive talent, there are some issues with injuries, things like that, but I really hope we can get back to a competent level on that side and you can continue to see progress from the offense. So if this goes on for 3-4 more weeks and we get into like the middle of October and this is still happening, Diana, you should like check in on me every 36 hours. But right now I'm actually feeling like it's not time to panic quite yet.
Yeah, I feel like when he has that time in the pocket, he does look stellar. Like he looks really good. It's just, can this offensive line continue to improve and give him more of those moments? Because I think where we're seeing him have that trouble is when he's escaping, right? Like it's almost like you can tell that they're coaching him to sit in the pocket because that's just where his best is. It's just, unfortunately, he's not getting all that protection. And I'm sure it's also natural for him to want to escape because, hell, the last few years, at least the last year or so, that's what he had to do to survive. And I think a lot of this is breaking those old habits. So I appreciate that you aren't freaking out because there has to be a level of patience, which we talk about a lot, even though people don't like to hear it.
Mm-hmm. When they were going through the offense in training camp, and Ben Johnson was explicit about this, and I talked to Declan Doyle when I was there. I think that some of the process that they were doing when they were installing the offense it was a lot of volume, just like seeing what they could do and what they couldn't do. And I don't think that left a lot of time to hone in on what things they were good at. And so I always expected it to feel a little bit uneven at the beginning of the season offensively. And that's what you've seen. There are some elements of the offensive line play that leave me a little bit worried. Like Braxton Jones is hurt. And he's going to continue to ramp up. And so the moments you've seen from Braxton Jones that have left a little bit to be desired, I'm less worried about that. Darnell Wright has not been great over the first couple of weeks. This is now year 3. You want to see more from him. And then Dahlman and Jonah Jackson have had their issues. And so, again, this is an area where you put a lot of investment with a little bit more time on task, with a little bit more cohesion as the season moves along. Do we see better play from the offensive line? And does that make the offense feel a little bit less disjointed and a little bit less sloppy than it's felt over the first couple of weeks?
Yeah, and I think that's part of this, right, Robert? Because you mentioned everything, and that's what we all heard is what does Caleb do right? What does he do wrong? What can he handle? Let's give him as much as possible and figure all of this out. But at the same time, then refining the things that he can do very, very well, maybe has a shorter period of time where you can focus on that. And maybe that's why you're also seeing with a new system and a new guy in charge, there's still some operational issues in a sense, in and out of the huddle a little bit in a sense. There's still the footwork stuff that Ben's trying to work with him on. And that's where you see some of the accuracy things creep back in. And these are all different aspects of what Ben Johnson's trying to do. And I'm curious if there in Chicago, if people are putting all of this on Caleb, or are they putting any of it on Ben? And I think that's been an interesting part of this early on because everybody's going, this was the savior. Everybody's wanted him for the last couple of years. I looked at the stats through 2 weeks. They're identical to last year for Caleb Williams. I mean, identical. It's wild. He's got 208.3 passing yards last year, 208.5 passing yards per game through 2 weeks this year. The completion percentage almost identical. Passer rating's almost identical. But what stands out to me the most is the opening drive. Like the opening drive of both games, he's been incredible. He's completing like 90% of his passes. They've scored a touchdown on both opening drives. To me, that's Ben Johnson setting him up to succeed throughout the week in the first 15. This is what we want to do. And then it somehow differs the rest of the game.
I'll say this. I think that's true of game 2. In game 1, I'm less inclined to think that way because a lot of the big chunk gains on that first drive against the Vikings are plays he was making out of structure. So I don't think that was the play design really contributing to that. That was him making plays that, while exciting, are still very volatile. And that's where I land with Caleb Williams. That first drive, especially that throw he makes running to his right down the right sideline, that stuff is fun. It's exciting. I want to see him do more of that. But what I want to see is him working on time with just a real command from the pocket. And that's what you saw in the Lions game. I think maybe 1 or 2 misses. The interception he throws while rolling to his right, trying to make one of those spectacular plays, is a nightmare decision. But the ratio of good to bad in that game was so much better than it was even in week 1. I think that there are encouraging signs of progress there. And if you get encouraging signs of progress from the quarterback and everything else can just get a tick better on the offensive line, the operational stuff, the penalties, and you just get the defense to a playable level, that would be a livable situation for me as a Bears fan over the course of the season. If they're the 18th best defense in the league, but Caleb Williams looks like he's a professional quarterback from the pocket by the time we get to the end of this thing and they go 7-10, I think I can live with that. They're a far cry from that now, but I think if that's the final result, I'll be able to live with that.
Okay. I can live with that. I can live with that. Dianna, can you live with that?
Again, I can live with it, and I think we can officially say that the panic meter, you're not panicked, right? Is that fair, Robert?
Concerned, not panicked.
But I think if we had to put our feet to the fire on this, and I'm going to do that to you, we're going to say not panicked because it's not a choice. Concerned is not a choice. We're tough on this on Scoop City, right?
I am not panicking yet. Yet is a key word there. Check back with me in like 2 to 3 weeks, and there's a chance I am panicking. Also, if you want to check in with me on Sunday in real time, I will be panicking. But it's not the best time to ask me about how things are going.
Well, I'd be curious what the panic meter will be if Eberflus, who's running that Cowboys defense, and that's who they face this coming Sunday, ends up just mauling Ben Johnson's offense. We'll see where the panic meter is after this Sunday when they face their former
That's probably enough
head
to get it
coach.
to like an 8.5 or a 9, considering the way the Cowboys defense played on Sunday against Russell Wilson.
100% accurate. And maybe that's a get-right game. Maybe it could be just explosion. We'll see. On to the Dolphins. And before I do get to both of your opinions on what's happening with Mike McDaniel and his group down there, make sure you read Mike Silver's article on The Athletic this morning about Mike and about what's going on down there in Miami. I think it's outstanding. Robert, what's the panic meter at for the Miami Dolphins when you have a player-only meeting after week 1? Haven't really heard that before in all my years covering the NFL. And I have seen this, a plane circling in week 2 talking about firing the general manager and the head coach. And now you have a standalone game on Thursday night against the Bills, which we always know what owners think about being the only game in town on a given evening and what the perception can be in a performance during one of those games.
It's pretty high. I am panicking about the Dolphins. And part of the reason that I'm panicking about the Dolphins is that I was semi-panicking before the season even started. And so when you're already that far along, I think the temperature gets much higher, much quicker. And that's where I am with Miami. This was always a weird situation. And you guys have a better sense of this than I do. And I'm curious to hear what you think about the organizational dynamics down there. But the way that the Dolphins were built and how they tried to do this over the last few years, it always felt like they were trying to thread a needle with how they were using some of these resources and even the players that they were seeking out. When you make that trade for Tyreek Hill, when you go sign Teron Armstead, when you trade for Jalen Ramsey, you have all these guys that are 30 plus. You have a couple year window to make this work. It didn't work. And they pushed all their chips in financially. They leveraged themselves financially over the last couple years. You fall short. And coming into this year, I always felt like, okay, you fell short. Now you retool and kind of figure out what else is going to happen and what the future of the organization looks like. Maybe that includes a reset for your decision makers and the stakeholders, the general manager, the head coach, everything. They didn't choose to do that. And then they kind of halfway tried to retool some of the elements of the roster coming into this year. And I never really understood what the goal was. Like, what are you trying to be? You're getting younger, but then you're trading away draft picks to move up in the second round for a guard. Like, it all felt very misaligned. And so I just didn't know what to make of this team. And it felt like they'd kind of run out of road coming into the season. And that's what it feels like. It feels like this group ran out of road and they found out or made a decision on it 6 months later than they should have in terms of the people they retained and how they tried to build the roster. So I think this is just a team in no man's land.
I think you could run back what you just said for multiple teams every single year, because you see so many organizations get stuck in this, we'll call it gray, where they probably should have made a decision. They didn't. They had a belief in something, right? And I think the belief that they've had has been in their head coach, Mike McDaniel, and in what he's done well for this offense when they were humming. And it wasn't that long ago. And I think sometimes that is what's hurting the expectations for what we have for this Dolphins team, when the way you laid it out is very true. It's not built to be as good as we want it to be based on what we saw. There's no growth from year to year at this point. And just seeing the way they're losing too, some of these self-inflicted decisions and moves, I think that always adds up and starts telling you the story of where this team is at and what they're about and what they care about. Look, we had heard in the offseason, too, that they had some personality differences with some of these guys on the team, right? Jalen Ramsey is no longer there. We've seen Jalen Ramsey before. We know what he's about. When he's not happy, he is going to let you know he's not happy, right? And I don't think he was thrilled there, which is why they shipped him out. And Tyreek Hill is not happy. He has said it, he's taken it back, but it's pretty evident. And I think he's just trying to get through until whatever the next step is going to be for him, whether or not they trade him by the trade deadline or not. But the Miami Dolphins know they need Tyreek in order for Tua to have success. But the problem is now the quarterback's not even playing well. Like, we always gave them credit because Tua and McDaniel appeared to understand what they needed to do to win some of these games and put together good offense. And now I don't see it. And I think this is where we're seeing this become a problem, why the future seems very bleak.
It's why oftentimes, Robert, when teams are built very specifically when things start to change within that, pivoting is sometimes difficult. The entire offense is designed around Tua and a left-handed quarterback, no less. The way the progressions are, the way they operate as an offense is designed specifically for Tua, but nobody really wants to say it. They're in like a soft rebuild right now in Miami. And I think when Dianna, you mentioned how they're built, when you're built specifically for one thing, and now you have to go through the transition of changing some of that when Teron Armstead retires and you move out Jalen Ramsey and you try to change some of the things that are happening there. You're trying to rely now on younger players. You have to when you have a Tua contract that's kicking in that you didn't have before. Now you have to pivot from what you were doing. And when that happens in an organization, oftentimes there's questions from ownership going, as we pivot into this somewhat rebuild or change, is this the two individuals we want running the ship for what we're changing, right? Is that going to be Chris Greer? Is that going to be Mike McDaniel? I think that's where Stephen Ross's thought process has to be. And there's one lying part of this that I think we should remember now and maybe just put it in the back of our mind. Anthony Weaver's really liked in that building. Like a lot, running that defense. If you wanted to make a change and take a look at him before you dip into the coaching world of 2026, that could be some of the thinking if this continues to spiral in the wrong direction.
What you just said, James, about do you have the right people in place for a soft rebuild? The first place my mind goes, and I think there's actually a lot of similarities between these two situations, is what happened in Cleveland this offseason. And I think you can quibble with a lot of the stuff that the Browns have done under Andrew Berry over the last 3 or 4 years. The draft record is horrendous. So we all know this. Part of the reason the draft record is horrendous is because they didn't have picks the same way the Dolphins did. So the Browns this offseason, with those two guys, Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry, still in charge, they said, okay, we ran out of road with this thing, with how we tried to build around Deshaun Watson. We know that as we move into a new era here, we need to do everything we can to stockpile draft picks and start to make up for the lost years that we had filling out the second and third tier of this roster with young, cost-controlled players. And look what the Browns did. That was the entire point and motivation for how they handled the draft in the entire offseason. The Dolphins...
It made sense.
It's exactly what you should do. Again, and that it's the mindset you should be in. It's what you should do. We'll see if it works out. But early returns, like Schlesinger looks good. You know, Dylan Sampson looks like he can play. Harold Fannin looks like he can play. It's their hope is this is a transformative rookie class to kind of restock the cupboard with those players. The Dolphins were in a very, very, very similar situation. They had fewer rookie contract players on their roster last year than any other team in the league. They'd made fewer draft picks over the last 3 or 4 years than any other team in the league. But while Cleveland, I think, could very clearly articulate to you what their plan is to get out of this, I don't think the Dolphins can do that. I think they're hedging all over the place, and it's left them nowhere with no discernible direction. And I think you've really started to feel that right now.
And you got the Bills on Thursday night. Mike, I love you.
Josh Allen against that secondary. I'm sure it's going to be great.
Yeah. Did you see what Tua said about Josh Allen, too? It's like, it's kind of a tough quote. He was honest, but essentially saying, like, yeah, I am not Josh Allen. I can't be I will never be Josh Allen, you know? And it's like, well, you're right.
As a journalist, I love Tua's honesty. He's almost a little too honest all the time. Let's go to the Kansas City Chiefs to close this out, and where everybody's panic meter is with Big Red and company, as they are 0-2 for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career. He has not had this type of start. We had Chase on with us on Monday, Dianna. He was like, I was on that 2014 team that started 0-2 the last time in Kansas City. This is a different group, though. I would like everybody's panic meter on the Kansas City Chiefs, because obviously this is a very different feeling than the other two, mainly because of where the head coach and the quarterback stand.
I'm not panicking yet. I think that there's too much earned equity with who the Chiefs have been over the last 3 or 4 years to be panicking 2 games into the season. You have your number 1 and number 2 receivers not currently playing, and I think you absolutely do feel some of that. The left side of the offensive line, while everyone coming into the season, I think, hoped that that group would be better than it was last year with Josh Simmons and Kingsley Suamataia. But you still have 2 guys playing new positions on the left side that I think hopefully will get better over the course of the year. Simmons looked great in week 2. Kingsley, I think, still some ups and downs, especially in the run game.
He could track down tacklers, tell you that. He was moving down that sideline.
What did they clock him at? Like 18 miles an hour?
18 miles an hour flying down the sideline, yeah.
I think my biggest issue with the Chiefs right now, and I do think that they can come out on the other side of this, but rewatching that game this morning, I was shocked at the gap in physicality between how the Eagles were playing and how the Chiefs were playing. And that's my issue right now with the Chiefs offense, first and foremost. If you're not going to be explosive because you don't have your pass catchers, you've got to find consistent methods of offense, especially on the ground. And they can't do that right now. They're getting pushed around right now. There have been other stretches, I think back to like 2023, or 22, I think back to even like last year and a couple times over the last few years when they haven't necessarily been this high flying explosive offense. They've still been able to run the ball. They haven't been explosive on the ground, but they've been consistent. And so right now it just feels like truly outside of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce mind meld moments and Patrick Mahomes scrambling, there is nothing they can go to on offense. And whether or not that changes when the receivers come back, I think we wait and see about that. And that's why I'm not all the way there totally panicking just yet, even if I think there are a lot of causes for concern.
Yeah, they were 10-0 in one-score games last year. So let's just remember, this wasn't a Chiefs team that was really dominating anyways last year. They're a bit of an extension of what we saw last year. It's not like I'm not feeling great improvement from a team that I thought would definitely take that loss from the Philadelphia Eagles in the Super Bowl and go, all right, we've got to make some changes here. And we know how Andy Reid likes to build this team. And we knew he'd address the offensive line because we knew that was the problem. But that being said, if you don't have Patrick Mahomes doing the things that he does so well, I just don't know how much of this offense can rely on that at this point. What, Patrick just turned 30 today, correct?
Happy birthday, Patrick.
I think they're asking perhaps a smidge too much. This isn't 25-year-old Patrick Mahomes. And this isn't me saying he's now old, he's not the same guy. He's still the best to do it, in football at this moment. But I just think that they're going too far that way. And they know it, by the way. Like they're waiting for these players to come back. And then let's see what happens before the trade deadline. If they make a decision as a team, like, look, this isn't enough. This isn't good enough. So I'm not as panicked because I believe in Andy Reid's ability to know and have his finger on the pulse of his team on what they need. But I think at the end of the month, if this continues, this is going to be bad.
On the Wizard of Oz, when everybody's asking what they want, and it's, I want a brain, I want courage, I want a heart. If Patrick Mahomes closed his eyes on this 30th birthday and said, really to himself, what do I want? I think he'd say, I want trust. I don't think he has any trust in what's around him right now. I think that is really the crux of this.
Well, why would he?
Listen, exactly, because Robert brought up the offensive line. There is a unbelievable inconsistency issue at left guard, rightfully so. Talking
right
to
tackle
there,
too.
Right. You beat me to it. They believe Josh has been fine at left tackle. Fine for a rookie. Right tackle is your second highest cap hit. And that is a very inconsistent player at your right tackle spot. I think Creed is an outstanding center. I think Trey hasn't really played up to the contract in a lot of people's minds in that building so far this season as one of the highest paid right guards in football. So what do I trust in front of me? And then I've covered this team extensively for a long time. He needs to, maybe more so than most quarterbacks, because this is part of every quarterback, but he needs to trust you to throw you the ball. Like big time. And you saw that last year and how that was gained with Rashee Rice. Go look at how much he targeted Rice in the early portion of the season before he went down. That was his guy. He gained the trust over the previous season into that, and it was there. He now has a little bit of that hesitation on who do I trust around me. My concern with my panic meter is that this continues to snowball and is at a difficult spot before Rice can return. So over the next couple of weeks, what Patrick does is when he knows these things, and he's brilliant, that he can't trust these things, he knows these issues lie, he tries to do too much. He's 15th in the NFL in rushing right now, or 16th in the NFL in rushing right now. He tries to do everything when he has this feeling around him that he doesn't trust everything. And there is a fear in that building that Patrick's going to keep trying to do more and keep trying to do more and have these heroics. And what happens to him before he can get these weapons back is a little bit of a concern. And I think the division is better. I think that plays a part in this as well as previous years. Does anybody want to put a bow tie on this by asking, maybe what they want Patrick to have as a birthday present from them to the great Patrick Mahomes
Not
to help him out?
Therapist, but Robert, where do you think the trust lies with Travis Kelce right now for him?
I think it's still pretty high. And there was a play, it was in the first half, and it was one of the bigger chunk gains they had in the entire game against the Eagles. And if you go back and you watch the All-22 on that play, it's the one where Kelsey's kind of over the middle of the field and he just kind of turns around at the sticks. Patrick throws that ball 2 steps before Travis is going to turn around. And that's not happening with anybody else on this offense. And so I still feel like that trust is there, but I think it's eroded with everybody else on the offense. And James, you bringing up Jawan Taylor, I think is a really important thing to do, because I think when you think about investments and returns for every player on that Chiefs offense right now, he's at the bottom of the list. And I truly think, I don't know how long it's going to take, but they should consider playing Jalen Moore at right tackle at some point. I really think they should, because I don't know how it can get worse than what you're getting out of Jawan Taylor right now. They need to find some consistency, because I think some people would look at this and they would say, well, Josh Allen doesn't have superstar receivers. Lamar Jackson doesn't have superstar receivers. They're fine. Those are 2 of the best rushing teams in the league and have been over the last couple of years. There's nowhere that this group can turn with KC right now to find any sort of consistency. And I think, like James just said, that's why you're starting to see it spiral a little bit. And that's why I think you see Patrick Mahomes just trying to do way too much without anywhere else that he can turn.
And we all can see it. Like, you don't even have to be an expert football watcher.
He played otherworldly, Dianna, in week 1. And they lost.
You just see it. You're like, what is it? He's so chaotic. And sometimes he still makes the play because he's that talented. But you can just see it. And unfortunately, my best memories of watching him do too much have been the 2 Super Bowls they lost. Right? We saw him running around like a lunatic because he knew he didn't have anyone, and he certainly didn't have time in either Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's exactly
and he missed that Tyquan Thornton throw in that game on Sunday. And the reason that sticks out so much is you need those plays. One mistake starts to become so astronomical because the misses matter that much more because the margins are so slim. And I think that's just what it feels like to watch this team right now. Everything is hard.
Yeah, it's been tough. It was put to me best by when Patrick is at his best and plays on such an unbelievable level and they still aren't there. That's when there's a little bit of a worrisome in Patrick's mind on how this offense is operating. Robert, this was outstanding. We got to have you back. I'd love to jump on your show if you ever want to have me. If you do anybody virtually, I know you're a big in-studio guy with this big fancy studio in Chicago.
Fly out.
Dianna, I'd love to hang out with you if you can. Tell Dave I said what's up.
We would love to do that. Thursdays is our day to kind of have people on the show. And so we will absolutely make that happen at some point over the course of the season.
Dianna, we invited ourselves over. I love it. I do it in my personal life too. All right, coming up in the last block of Scoop City, we have, I believe it's Chris Branch. Yeah, Dianna, Chris Branch is going to give us a couple of questions, and we're going to answer them as we finish things out with Scoop City, presented by eBay on a Wednesday. Welcome back to Scoop City, presented by eBay on a Wednesday. James Palmer, Dianna Russini, closing things out. Dianna, every Wednesday we get asked a different question by one of these individuals from their newsletters. Here is Chris Branch with the Pulse newsletter. We never know what these are, right? We don't know what they are. Then we answer. Chris, what do you got this week?
Hey, Scoop City. Chris Branch with the Pulse back here. And we have a very serious question that we're pondering this week. And it comes with football, specifically kickers' footballs. In Mike Sando's column this week, he detailed how kickers now have basically all season to mold and shape the footballs how they want, and how they are kicking extremely well with them, understandably. I was talking to Mike, and he sent me this article from 1999 detailing all of the funky ways that kickers do this. And 3 of the ways that I wanted to ask you guys which one you would do if you were a kicker. One of them, slathering them in evaporated milk. 2, using acupuncture on the football. Or 3, just sleeping with the football. Pick your choice. I think I'd go acupuncture.
Whoa, not sure where this article came from. Sleeping with the football. Okay. Mike, interesting. Kickers are strange cats. Dianna, do you have one out of the 3 as I think about which one I want? Do you know?
Yeah, I think I would probably go with my own original. So
yeah,
I cook everything with olive oil, and everything just tastes better with it. So I figured I could translate it to my kicking. So I would dip the football in olive oil, maybe a little garlic. It also smells good as it's flying by
I can hear the holder just being like, while he holds the ball.
So weird.
Yeah.
The whole thing is bizarre. The acupuncture thing I don't get. Have you ever had acupuncture?
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally.
Me too. I just tried it last year for the first time. And I
just picture the ball popping, but I don't.
That's what I don't get. Like, are we back to, Inflategate?
Just slightly in before we get to the bladder of the ball. I don't know.
I know. Isn't that wild how they like can connect parts of your organs to things in your bed? It's so weird, but it works.
Weird. It is weird. It works. I first off don't mind this. Kicking a football is so hard. Specifically in NFL football, I want to give some context. I was our kicker on our high school football team. Way to go up Marion Area High School. Champs Division 2001. But a high school ball is so easy to kick. Like I was money from like 45, 48, like easy. College ball, then a pro ball. I was so high on myself. I kicked a pro ball in college. It barely went anywhere. They're like a rock. They don't kick like a college ball. They don't kick like a high school ball. They're so difficult. So I think you should be allowed to do whatever you'd like. When you talked about cooking, I thought about putting it in a crock pot, kind of bake this bad boy up a little bit, softener. They're so hard. So maybe like the olive oil and maybe just kind of like steam it a little bit is not a terrible idea.
Yeah. I feel like all those options were things like you do for children, the way it's like you sleep with it.
Hey, this ball's their livelihood.
Right. So when I would go to practice. So I played Division I soccer.
No big deal.
No big deal. But in order to get over to the facility, you had to cut through our club football's practice area. The quickest way to get to my practice was to get cut through theirs instead of going all the way around. And so there were a few times where I'd be out there and they were just starting. And so the guys were just hanging out and the kickers were warming up and they would have me kick to just try and you're right. Like, it was not easy. I was obviously very cocky approaching it. Like, guys, like, what a bunch of club playing football losers, right? Like, watch this.
Yeah.
They were great. Naturally. They were so fun. And they let me do it over and over for like 4 years. So yeah, no, it's definitely one of those things. Unless you've done it, and you see fans try it at the stadiums and stuff. Like you very rarely. I mean, look, Pat McAfee does it every Saturday on College Game Day, and you see how hard it is for people to do it.
Yeah, totally.
But Brandon Aubrey, I think, just right now, it's just his story and just this idea that like you talk about like the dream. You know, like his wife just going, why don't you just go do that? We're watching this on TV. You're better than these guys. Oh, yeah, let me just go do it. And boom, on the Dallas Cowboys and perhaps Jerry Jones' favorite player now. It's unbelievable.
Steelers kicker Chris Boswell told me once he was holding a ball and he was like, here to here, about an inch and a half is the difference between a miss and a make, like of where you strike the ball. Like it's that tiny of a difference. Okay, we got one more from Chris, I believe.
Hey, Dianna and James, one more question before you go, and this one is actually serious. In light of the Joe Burrow injury in Cincy, what is it going to take for somebody to press the Kirk Cousins panic button? I know it's probably not the Bengals, but it has me thinking about him sitting there with that big contract.
Good question, because I've thought it. Obviously, as soon as you start seeing all the starting quarterbacks down, you immediately pull up the list of who's available, who's on the street, and who's open to trade. And we know Kirk wants to get out of there. Well, he wants to be a starter somewhere. He wants an opportunity to play. Unfortunately, from what I can gather, the Atlanta Falcons are not trying to move him at this moment. Like that is just, they don't have any idea about what they want to do after this season, but the thought has been we want to keep him on this roster unless there's a team that's going to come in and say, we'll pay for his full salary. And I just don't see a team willing to do that for Kirk Cousins. Because my thought, too, when I saw J.J. McCarthy go down before we found out what the injury was, not go down, but when we found out that he was injured and I wasn't sure about the timeline of it, I was like, ooh, maybe a reunion of Kirk Cousins and Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings. And we know how much Cousins loved it and he almost stayed and the whole backstory. And from what I understand, that's not on the table. That's not something Minnesota's looking in on. That's not something Atlanta has done to reach out. And there's no story right now where Kirk Cousins goes back to play for the Minnesota Vikings.
And that makes sense to me a little bit. I remember talking to people in Atlanta in the spring, and I don't think, and correct me if I'm wrong on this because I know you did as well, I don't think there was anybody that thought he was going to be on the roster in 2025. Like they all thought this was probably going to end. When the season ended and they knew Michael Penix was going to be the guy, they were like, I just don't think this is going to work with him staying in the building and being as highly paid as he is and being Michael's backup. I just don't see him on the roster. I had multiple people tell me that. I do think the entire environment of that quarterback room has changed now a little bit. And I think everybody's a little bit more comfortable with it. And you look at the totality of the salaries in that room. You're on par still with everybody else in terms of quarterback salary because your starter's on a rookie deal and your backup's on the starter deal essentially, and you're not overpaying if you're Atlanta. And also you have a veteran backup behind your guy that has 5 starts now in the NFL. I mean, I don't think that's something that Atlanta wants to just give away. So I think that part is kind of interesting. And then the other part that I look at, Dianna, is there were some people around the league that I talked to that think Kirk Cousins is essentially done. I don't know if that's a universal thought or not. And so it has to be the right team that doesn't think that and have the availability cash-wise and the availability in terms of the need to make something happen. So I don't know. I never thought I'd say this, but I think him staying right now is probably, if we're doing percentages, the most likely outcome as of right now as we sit here.
I was going to say, it's September 17th.
Trade deadline's like 7 weeks away or whatever it is.
Just about. And, you don't know what's going to happen injury wise. But when you look around the league, you're right. Like a lot of teams have pretty solid backup situations now. When you start going through it, it's like, oh, well, they're good there. They're set there. It's going to take a really desperate situation for a playoff contender to, I think, make that move. So Atlanta's fine having them sit there. They don't want to pay the bill, but they got a good backup quarterback if they need one, even in Atlanta now. So unfortunately, a story that I think we thought was going to be pretty juicy this year. I think it's going to flame out.
Yeah, the juice is loose. No juice.
Why is it loose?
No juice there. Is the juice is loose? Was that juicy fruit?
No, it's juicy fruit. Yeah, it's juicy fruit from 1999. Back to Sando's article. I'm going to go Google that, by the way.
Bang. There it is. Dianna will close us out with that. For Robert Mays, I'm James Palmer. That's Dianna Russini. This was a Scoop City presented by eBay on a Wednesday. See you on Thursday.